quick review of last week's episode and this week's TESOL topic. Next. Go! Let's go! Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Hopewell TESOL. My name's Chris Hopewell, and I'm your TESOL guy. Time to review last week's episode. Last week, we talked about Howard Gardner's 8 intelligence types. We talked about verbal linguistic intelligence. These people understand the order and meaning of words very easily and enjoy using language at a high level. We talked about logical mathematical intelligence. These people are good at recognizing and using patterns. We talked about visual spatial intelligence. These people are good at visualizing and remembering images, and they really understand their surroundings. We talked about bodily kinesthetic intelligence. These people learn by doing things physically. We talked about interpersonal intelligence. These people are good at relating to other people and are what we call people smart. We talked about intrapersonal intelligence. These people work alone very well and understand themselves very deeply. And we talked about musical rhythmic intelligence. These people understand things through sound, vibration, beats, tones, and lyrics. And finally, we talked about naturalistic intelligence. These people are in touch with nature, and they understand and care about the environment. Now, please remember, human beings have very different kinds of intellectual strengths. These intellectual strengths influence how people represent things in their mind and how they demonstrate what they've learned. If there was only one kind of intelligence, we could teach everyone the same way. But in reality, people have different kinds of minds and abilities and strengths. And only teaching to one kind of ability would actually be kind of unfair. We need to take the time to discover students' learning preferences. And within reason, we need to do our best to teach and assess students according to their individual preferences. Within reason, we've got to be realistic here. We're not miracle workers. And now for this week's TESOL topic. Oh boy, here we go. Woo! I've been waiting all week. Let's get into it. This week's TESOL topic is the role of the teacher. Teacher roles. Woo! Okay, what is a role? A role is a set of connected behaviors, rights, obligations, beliefs, and norms as conceptualized by people in a social situation. Shout out Wikipedia. Actors play roles, and I suppose teaching is a kind of acting when done well. So basically, today we're talking about how the teacher is supposed to act in the classroom. Okay, so according to Jim Scrivener, shout out Jim Scrivener, there are a few important concepts we need to think about when defining teacher roles. First, we need to think about the entertainer versus the traditional teacher. Second, the importance of rapport. Third, respect, empathy, and authenticity. And fourth, the notion of the 3 teacher types. First, the entertainer versus the traditional teacher. Everyone loves to be entertained. This is true. But let's remember that students want to learn. That's why they're there. That's why they're taking the class. That's why they're paying the money. Now, of course, the class should never be boring, but if the teacher is entertaining, let's remember that this entertaining has to go somewhere, has to lead to something important educationally. Honestly, this is something that I've been guilty of in the past, and maybe in the present, and probably will be in the future. I sometimes get hung up on the desire to get students to like me, and occasionally I forget the real purpose of the class. How embarrassing. And the entertainer is opposed to the traditional teacher. Remember traditional versus modern classrooms? Well, this is kind of traditional versus modern teachers. The traditional teacher talks a lot, uses the board a lot, writes everything on the board, can sometimes be aggressive and judgmental because they have all the power. Students are usually very quiet and passive and take lots of notes. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Unfortunately, this has probably been the dominant teaching style throughout history. Probably. I'll have to crunch the numbers, but I think that's true. Second is the importance of rapport. Now, rapport, or good rapport, is a close and harmonious relationship. The concept of rapport is about how the teacher relates to the students and how the students feel around the teacher. I think in a perfect situation, the atmosphere in a class is friendly, respectful, maybe a touch fearful at times. A little pressure is good sometimes. And very human. Or I guess I could say compassionate. So basically, you want to have a positive, healthy, and appropriate relationship with your students. That is called building rapport. Third is respect, empathy, and authenticity. An idea that was made popular by Carl Rogers. Shout out Carl Rogers. Shout out Carl Rogers. My guy. Respect would be having a positive, non-judgmental attitude towards students. Empathy is the ability to see things from your student's perspective, not just yours. And authenticity is about being honest with your students about who you are and just being yourself. And fourth, we have the concept of the three teacher types: the explainer, the enabler, and the involver. This was an idea that was originally made popular by Adrian Underhill. Shout out Adrian Underhill. Shout out Adrian Underhill. First, the explainer. This teacher understands the subject matter they are teaching very well. This teacher explains, talks, lectures, and writes on the board. The explainer knows the subject matter they are trying to teach, but has no idea about teaching methodology, so might not really know how to teach the subject matter, or the best way to teach the subject matter. Knowing and teaching are two very different things. Now, this doesn't make the explainer a bad person. This is a very common situation. Often in the field of teaching English, someone will get a university degree in English and think that because they understand English and have a degree, this makes them qualified to teach. Well, a degree is good, but you also need teaching theories, methodologies, techniques, and activities to be a real English teacher, or language teacher at that. Second is the involver. This teacher knows the subject matter and the methodologies. This teacher uses teaching and organizational procedures. The involver wants to involve students in the learning process and wants to find activities that will make students active participants in the learning process. And third is the enabler. This teacher knows the subject matter and knows the methodologies and is willing to share control with the learners, or even give up control entirely. What an idea. The enabler is like a guide or a counselor, or even a resource of information when needed. Okay, so which type of teacher should you be? I don't know. Stop bugging me. Well, that depends on who you are, who you want to be, who your students are, who your students want to be, who your students want you to be, and who your students need you to be. Every teacher is different, and every student is different. Every class is unique. So I guess you just have to do the work and figure it out on a case-by-case basis. Sorry, you gotta put in the work. Easy? No. Important? Yes. Yes. So I guess this is really about you, the teacher, having interpersonal skills and intrapersonal skills, not just students. Okay, my friends, that's it for today's episode. I hope it helped you to better understand the teacher's various roles in the classroom and how teachers influence the learning environment by the decisions they make and the actions they take. If indeed this episode was useful, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Hope Well TESOL. And remember, if you want it to go well, you have got to hope well. You've got to hope well.